this video, I'm analyzing Let Down, which is the next track in OK Computer in my OK Computer analysis series. And this is a very, very beautiful song, in my opinion. It's in their own words about that feeling that you get when you're in transit, but you're not in control of it. You just go past thousands of places and thousands of people, and you're completely removed from it. But the words disappointed and let down are repeated multiple times, so I think that's also a theme, as well as some sense of hope for growth and escaping and moving forward, motion. All these analogies of bugs being crushed or growing wings and flying away. I'm sorry, I think you meant analogies. The song is in the key of A major, and it uses the main four ingredients of pop harmony, which is these four chords. We're going to call them 1, 4, 5, and 6. And it sounds like this. They don't use it in that order. 3 of the 4 chords in this progression are major, with 1 minor chord that really stings. And they really emphasize it too. I feel like that's the disappointment chord in the song. It's not a disappointing chord. It's just the chord that I think symbolizes the conflicting feelings that the song's about. The intro really sets the tone for this song. The interlocking guitar melodies between Johnny and Ed. It was so much fun figuring out what they were doing, because I used to just listen to it like there's just lots of notes kind of swirling around. It's really dreamy. I don't really know what's happening. I'm not going to figure out what's happening. Just sort of letting it wash over me. Truly can't figure out everything, but I can hear Johnny's melody pretty well. And I made a discovery that really surprised me. Anyway, we'll get there in a second. But there's lots of layers, which is, I think, a signature part of OK Computer. Bill, on his drums, also so tasteful. For the most of the song, he's playing a tambourine instead of a snare. So that's a very different feeling, right? Snares have a lot of power behind them. They pack a lot of heat, and they are, a very accented accent. And then he's also playing the toms with a mallet, like a soft mallet. Instead of hitting a hi-hat on the t-t-t-t, he's doom, 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 doom. He might be accenting a little bit, like doom, 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 doom. But that creates a completely different feeling from just like a regular rock backbeat. And additionally, instead of just hitting his snare or his tambourine on 2 and 4, like he goes so there's these like syncopated accents near the end of the phrase. So now for this guitar melody. That's going to come back. Anyway, I just had no idea that this was going on. I thought it just sounded kind of random, because there are definitely elements in here that have a random sound. The synth arpeggios that come later, and some of Johnny's near the end. But this is not random. This is a very well-defined pattern. It's just that it's in a different meter than the rest of the song. So this pattern is 5 beats long, and everything else is 4 beats long. So they go out of sync with each other, but they have the same beats, just not the same number. They have the same pulse, in other words. It definitely makes it less clear what's going on, but I also think that it adds a harmonic layer that wouldn't be there otherwise. Because there are 4 notes in this pattern, I'm wrong, 5 notes, these notes right here. Depending on where we are in this pattern, one of these notes is going to be hitting in a different spot than it was before. So you get this like really neat like combinations, I guess. Sometimes you hear this one when you don't expect it. You might hear this one or maybe this one. This is like the sound of major to me. It's got everything. It's got the major third. It's got the major seventh, tonic fifth. I feel like wind chimes are tuned to this, right? Major keys, they can sound like a lot of things, but I think in this case it gives the song kind of an easy feeling. Halfway through the verse, Johnny switches from this to this other pattern. I kind of think of it as 1 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 1 2. And these two notes are like an important part of the major scale. The third, which I talked about before, and the fourth, which is right next to it, and it creates this thing called a suspension. You could feel this tension release. That's called a sus4. So anytime you have a half step between notes in a scale, I feel like those are worth paying attention to because they tend to describe the most salient characteristics of the scale, like the notes that stand out and make the scale sound the way it does. But it also is a point of tension and resolution. Ed's guitar, I think, is doing this slightly different pattern where he's kind of wiggling between the A and G sharp. And then sometimes he goes up to C sharp. His tone is different than Johnny's, so there's some separation. Both really beautiful tones, I think. I don't know what he's doing exactly, but I can hear some, and then suddenly. So I'm not sure if he's in 4/4, and that's why they're kind of out of sync with each other, but that beautiful high C sharp that kind of pierces through is something I look forward to every time. It's so beautiful. It's the major third of the key, so it's like the heart. It's the heart of the key. Colin's holding down the A, which is like a pedal point for the intro. But then when the verse comes in, there's a chord progression. This is the chord progression that we're all familiar with. It's A major, then E major, and then that minor chord, that F sharp minor. Then it goes back down to the E major, and it goes back to A. So remember I gave those chords numbers? So if we think of this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1 again, then the chords that we're playing, they have a bottom note to them called a root, and we're just going to use the number of the scale to call the chord by the same number. So 1, 1, then E major, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, then back to 5, then back to 1. It's not till the chorus that the D major chord comes in, and that's 4. And then we have our axis progression, pop progression. Tom's melody follows the chords. Transport, and that's the root of this chord. Then he goes just down to this G sharp, which is the third of this chord. Moto, and trim. And then he has a little thing called an escape tone. He goes da 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 da, little da da da. Just helps kind of frame that note. And then he sings the root of this minor chord. Then he keeps going down and sings the root of the E chord. So he just goes da 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 da, and each one of those notes is either the root or the third of a chord being played at the time. This is a great way to start, I think, the melody, because in the second verse he's going to make variations to his melody that kind of bring the energy up, and in the final verse he adds even more variations that bring the energy to its climax. Colin's also following the chords here with the bass: A, E, F sharp, and E. to the chorus, and the bass starts to move a lot more in the way that I think Colin does best, kind of going up and down scales and like hitting the main notes that he needs to hit at just the right time. So he kind of goes, and there's this big accent we're going to talk about that the whole band participates in. The chords you could think of as D major, and then maybe like a passing E major up to A major, and then sort of a premature letdown into the F sharp minor. So the rhythm of the chord progression is really interesting. This is called the harmonic rhythm. And we stay there for quite a while. The reason we stay there for quite a while is because the chorus is phrased in 3 bars. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That was 3 groupings of 4. Those are the bars. So there's like an extension feeling, but we just hanging around on this minor chord. And then that's when you hear the da, 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 which is so pretty in Johnny's guitar, I believe. Oof. So I feel that there's an accent on kind of a strange beat in the measure. It really does feel like a disappointment. Even though minor chords are my favorite, it does feel like there was a sense of satisfaction and arrival in getting to the A major chord, which is called the tonic chord. That's the chord that's supposed to feel the most at home in the song, and it really does, this A major chord. That's like the end, and that is the end of the song. The song does end on the A major chord. But to go down here and get here, but then suddenly it's taken away. Like if it didn't do that and it just stayed on A, like let down and hanging around. I mean, it doesn't sound like let down, of course, but just to give you an example of that feeling of completion, and that's just sort of thwarted with this minor chord. In addition to this being phrased in 3, it also ends after 3 repetitions of the 3-bar phrase. I love Radiohead. Let down and hanging around, crushed like a bug in the ground. Let down and hanging around. On the 3rd time, we get what's called a half cadence. And a half cadence is when you go to the 5 chord and you just kind of stay there and you don't resolve it. So we get which sounds like an unanswered question, like, and? But then you get your answer with the interlude when it goes back to A, which is where 5 kind of wants to go. But I love this thing that happens at the end of, I think, every verse and every chorus to some degree in some variation, which is this line of dum, da, 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 dum. And the bass does it too. Tom's vocal melody is kind of following the chords again, but he's using these sort of descending lines. So he goes da 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 da. See, it kind of lines up really nicely with the chords, but it's a pattern, and patterns are what make melodies memorable. I believe someone is harmonizing with him. It might be Ed, at least it is in the live performances, and harmonizing a 3rd above him. Let down and there's a little bit of a difference between live and studio, and in the live version, I can clearly hear that there's a guitar playing that harmony, but an octave lower. Let down and hang around. If you don't know much about vocal harmonies, just know that this kind of vocal harmony parallel thirds or parallel sixths. They are actually the same thing but different. It's just a spacing situation. They are the most lovely, harmonious, I would say, and emotional. I mean, that's a really broad term, but they're the most, the kind of harmony that hugs you, I guess I'll say. It's like the most comforting and descriptive kind of harmony versus like open fifths or fourths, which is very like, it's kind of blank slate sounding, more like Gregorian chant sounding. And I love those, but this is just a more tight, related, and really beautiful, lush kind of harmony. So I think it was a perfect choice for this song. So I don't think something like parallel fifths would have worked. It just wouldn't have matched the feeling of the song. The song it's not trying to challenge you musically. It's hugging you. It's not necessarily comforting. It could be. It's talking about some really nuanced stuff, right? It's not about feeling good, but it feels like it can just sort of easily wash over you without you having to do like a ton of work. There's an interlude, which is very similar to the intro. And when the whole band comes back in for the second verse, they come in right when Johnny is hitting, like, I think this G sharp. And I don't know, I just love that moment. It's just like it stings a little bit because it's just kind of dissonant. Right when he goes there. In the second verse, Tom starts to embellish his vocal melody like I was talking about. Shell smash, juices flowing, wings twitch, legs are going, don't get sentimental, it always ends up in drivel. I clearly don't know the rhythm of that last one. How, after all these years, do I not know that? I don't know. But he'll start low, he'll go high, and then descend down to his next destination. So there's this taking off and trying to reach and falling, and that theme comes back later as well. So even higher this time. Back to that. Little suspension there. Da, 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 tension release. And this kind of painful tritone. It's very dissonant. Da, da, da. Another suspension. I love that he goes back to that. I don't know. It just feels sad somehow going back there. It looks like I was wrong. It kind of it goes back up at the end there. In the second half of this verse, the drums open up. I love that it's not at the beginning. I love how just asymmetrical their music is. And yet it still fits into a structure. It still makes sense. But it just breaks the mold just enough. So Phil, by opening up, I mean, he basically starts to play the ride cymbal instead of the toms. And then he plays the snare along with the tambourine at the same time. So that builds the energy a lot. At the same time, Johnny starts doing a 3-against-2 polyrhythm. So this is really cool. He takes these notes, all those notes, and just starts to play them in a polyrhythm. I can't, but it's something like approximately. So this is da 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 da. So that's called a 3-against-2 or a hemiola. And I love this. I think it's so beautiful. It's like, what can we do with these notes, right? What else can we do? How else can we express what we're trying to express? And it's still familiar sounding, but different. And I think it's also kind of subconscious. Like, it's just there working on you and creating this distance and a little bit of pain, but beauty. I don't know. I like it. There's this beautiful spotlight, I would say, on chemical reaction with a vocal harmony, parallel thirds again, that just brings it out. That's such a good tip. When there's a lyric that has particular weight and you want to bring it out, harmonize on that, just that part. And then, the chorus is really nice too. It's very similar to the first one, but Phil, now he's playing bigger drums and he starts doing these little fills at the end of phrases. Right when that moment comes and it stings on the minor chord, is this like, ga-da-ga-da-da. See if I can find one for you. And then I love how Tom kind of draws out the bug in the ground. Ground. Okay, now the bridge. I love the bridge. It's so sparkly and gorgeous. The bridge is basically a big A major 7th chord, which sounds like this. This gorgeous line, and he's using A as sort of his pedal point. So he's going like dun 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 dun, and the A is always at the bottom. It's always the thing he's kind of bouncing his other notes against. Dun, da, da, da. I just love this. It's like it's reaching up and then falling down and reaching up, trying again, higher this time. And then, there's this like taking flight and not being able to get off the ground feeling. Colin, the bassist, is holding down the pedal point. And the phrasing in general just feels really loose here. Like I completely lose my place. I don't know when anything's supposed to come in. When the last verse comes in, the only thing that tips me off is that Phil goes gung, 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 gung on the toms. Tom's singing in the background. Let down, different variations, so pretty. And then Johnny does this thing. I think it's Johnny. Somebody is doing this sort of rushed, out of time, repeated figure of these notes. Da, 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 da. Sometimes it's like. Sometimes it's like. Da, da, da. I love that. I don't know what it reminds me of, but it reminds me of something. So I think Johnny's doing that, and I think Ed is doing this, going between an A and a B. A lot of wiggling, a beautiful wiggling in the guitars while this is all going on, which sounds like this. So in combination, it's like could not be more beautiful. And it creates this feeling of what's called an add 9 chord, which I've learned is just beauty. I guess a 9th chord, whatever. Okay, a 9th chord. Either way, there's a 9 involved in this, and that's what really matters. And then it releases into these beautiful synth arpeggios on either side, and they have that random feeling. One of them's doing like doubled notes, like and I have this incredibly strong like visual experience listening to this of like things like bubbles or something popping in like bright colors in rainbows. And I was trying to figure out like what are the notes being used in these different arpeggios or these sequences, and it seems like all of the notes in the major scale are up for grabs. So it's just sort of this painting of major. I have a feeling a lot of people's favorite part of the song is the last part, the last verse and then the last chorus. I can see why. It reaches a climax And the vocal harmonies, the way Tom separates himself into these two different selves, these two different thoughts and lines, is just exquisite. That's the first variation. Instead of going da, 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 going down, he goes up. Da, 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 da. Then da, 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 da. When he gets to the E, he holds this out for a long time, and he's really, it's singing from his core, right? And the other Tom comes in and joins him, but then splits off. So he goes da 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 da. So that line sounds similar to, and the reason is it's in parallel third harmony with the original melody. So our brain can tell it's the same pattern, just higher. And it also works harmonically because a lot of the harmony in this song and a lot of other pop songs, sorry to call it pop, but I think you know what I mean, like not jazz, not classical, is based on the interval of a third. So it's like a fun creative math problem. And essentially that's what it would sound like if those two melodies were happening at the same time. So this part, and then it goes back down to the original one. After Tom stops holding out his E, he flips up to his falsetto and goes, and I think the line is, "You know where you are," right? You know where you are. And then, so why is this so gorgeous? Well, all of this starts on the minor chord. So that already, I think, makes it especially painful or gorgeous. I guess it actually starts on the E major chord, but that's a sus2, which is so beautiful. The pain is right here. Then he goes up, and there's another suspension there. So yeah, lots of suspensions. They're very emotional. I think they create a narrative. But also Tom's falsetto is just one of the best in the biz, and it always gets to me. So that harmony plus him flipping, in the last chorus, this is the part where, at least in the live performance, Ed is singing a harmony with Tom, and he sings in parallel thirds and then holds out this note. Let down drops off there. The ending is basically a reprise of the arpeggiated, random sounding synths, and Tom's guitar line is underneath that, and it just feels like life affirming to me. It does feel hopeful, no matter what we've just been through listening to the song. What Tom is playing is kind of covered up by the synths, but I could hear it really well in a live performance because they didn't have the synths going. It's really, really nice. And it is describing an A sus4 that resolves. it ends on the A major chord, our home, only after 3 repetitions. That's the end of my analysis for this song. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. And if you want to support what I'm doing, Patreon is the best way to do that. We have listening parties and musical challenges, all sorts of opportunities for one-on-one time with me and educational videos and fun live streams. So I hope you'll check it out if you have the means. If not, just sharing the video with other Radiohead lovers would help me so much. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'll see you next time.